Well, hello again and welcome back for another video. This week we're going to be doing a little bit of chemistry. We are going to learn about polymers. Think of that as two words, poly and mer. Poly means many. So does that mean many mers? Well, sort of. So imagine you're wearing some sort of a necklace or a bracelet and they're made of beads. So each individual bead is like its own little particle. Now, when you add lots of those particles together in a chain, that's what we call a polymer, or kind of think of it as polyparticles. So a bunch of those particles chain together. Now, imagine you get a chain that's long enough, and then you ball that chain up, kind of, compress it, squish it together. It's almost going to act like a solid. Right, because all those particles are getting really tightly packed together. Now, for our activity and little experiment today, we are going to be making a polymer. You might have done something similar to this before. Maybe you've made slime. So we're kind of going to be making slime, but we're going to try and make it bouncy. We're going to try and make bouncy slime or a bouncy polymer. Well, let's get into it. All right, well, let's get started. I've got 2 jars here. Okay, this one's slightly larger. That's okay, as long as they're about the same size, not a big deal. What we're going to do in one of these jars is we're going to add a cup. This is almost a cup of water here. Doesn't have to be exact. In fact, it's a little bit less. I'm going to pour that in the jar. All right, set that one aside there so I don't confuse them. All right, and you want to pick a food color that you like. So blue, green, red, yellow, whichever. I'm going to go ahead and do green. Add some drops of those, and then maybe do about 5 drops. 3, 4, 5, mixes nice and easily there. Okay. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to add the same amount but in glue. So this is about a cup of water. I'm going to add about a cup of glue. So to do that, I'm going to take this big guy here. All right, and this is just regular Elmer's glue. This is white glue. You can use clear glue if you like. Since we're going to be coloring it, it doesn't matter too much. This is just regular Elmer's school glue, and I'm going to sort of eyeball this. I don't really want to get this in my measuring cup. It's going to be roughly about the same. So if you wanted to use just half a cup of water, then you'd use half a cup of glue. So it's a 50-50 solution. So half one, half the other. All right, I think that should be about good there. There we go. All right, now I'm going to grab my lid that came with my jar here, screw it on very tightly, because now what you want to do is you really want to shake this up. Okay, so you kind of start out, swirl it around, start out kind of lightly, and just make sure there are no leaks out there. And then once you know it's nice and tight and secure, then you really start shaking it up. So the goal is to shake it up to the point where there are no clumps of glue left in there. All right, that's a really nice looking color in there. It's almost like a sort of a mint ice cream, melted mint ice cream. Definitely wouldn't want to eat this though. All right, well, I think that's pretty good. I'm gonna let that settle a bit. Now, I'm gonna take my other jar and I'm gonna add a cup of water to it. And so here we go. A cup of water into the jar. Okay, and we are going to add to this jar, it's right here. This is actually contact solution, but the main ingredient in this is, it's called boric acid. Now, you can use borax, of course. A lot of you that maybe have made slime before may have used borax, and that's fine. Just be aware that borax, that powder, can irritate the skin a little bit. So if you do that, I recommend wearing gloves. If you don't want to use the powder, you can also use this. Just make sure, wherever you pick this up, make sure that it has boric acid as one of its main ingredients, or its main ingredient. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a measuring spoon. Here we go. So this is a teaspoon here. Doesn't take a whole lot. I'm going to measure 2 teaspoons of this boric acid. So this should be a 4% solution of boric acid. That means we have about a cup of water in here, only 2 teaspoons of the boric acid. That works out to 4% boric acid compared to, what would it be, 96% water, right? Because 4 plus 96 is 100%. So this one over here was 50-50. So half was glue, half was water, plus the food coloring. Doesn't really add up to much. This is 4% of boric acid, 96% water. All right. Same thing here. Close it tightly. There we go. Oh. All right, I think I'm gonna have to be a little careful with this one. Lid might not have come with this jar. It looks like it's a different size, so be a little careful. You don't need to shake this one as vigorously anyway, so that's fine. Just swirl it around. All right, next, I'm gonna take a bowl, just a regular plastic bowl here. What I want to do now is I want to add each of these separately into my bowl. I'm going to start with my 50-50 glue to water solution here. It's going to go pour some of that in there. You don't have to measure it out. You don't have to be exact. In fact, the point of this is to find out what measurements you need to make your polymer or your slime. Now the trick is, if you made slime before, you know it's really kind of gooey. It sticks together, but it's still kind of runny, right? But what we're looking for actually is we want it to be firm enough to the point where you can roll it up into a ball and you can bounce it. So that's what we're aiming for. So I got my glue and water. Next, I'm going to add my 4% boric acid solution. Just going to add a little bit. That was maybe about a tablespoon's worth there. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and take this teaspoon measuring spoon here, and I'm going to start stirring it up. And as you do it, you want to pay attention. You want to feel how smooth or maybe how hard it is to stir. Right now, it's still pretty smooth. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to add more of my solution. A little more. Just add, say, maybe a tablespoon at a time. See what happens. All right, well, still pretty runny. So I have got a secret weapon. Baking soda. So now what I want to do, and again, I'm not worried about being precise with this, because you're just going to add a little bit as you go along. The whole point of this is to just kind of feel for how much you need. Add some of that baking soda in there. Now that was about a tablespoon. So if you'd like to be more scientific with this than I am, then what you can do is you can record what you're adding. So you can make yourself a chart. You can say, all right, I added 1 tablespoon of the boric acid solution. It was still pretty runny. I added another, it was still runny. Then I added about a tablespoon of baking soda. Now we're going to see if that makes any difference. Not much. So I'm going to add another tablespoon. About a tablespoon there. It's starting to get a little, so you know the difference between stirring water and say stirring maple syrup. You know, syrup is thicker, right? Trying to get it to be a little thicker there. And oh, I just spilled some, that's okay. All right, I'm gonna add a little more boric acid, or borax if you're using borax. About a teaspoon's worth there. It's a little thicker. All right, well, I'm gonna add quite a bit more. I'm gonna, roughly add 2 tablespoons of the baking soda. Now, why am I adding baking soda? Well, this acts as a really nice sort of base for your polymer chains to form. Oh yeah, there we go. Now it's starting to get thick. Okay. And just go ahead and experiment. If you want to add more glue, see what happens. Again, if you want to be more scientific with this, then you can make a record of what you're adding, how much of what you're adding, until you get to the point where you got slime. So I'm going to add some more glue. I'd say that's around 2 tablespoons there. All right, and just keep stirring. Now, I will tell you that it is going to take quite a bit of stirring, probably more than you might think. And so you want to be a little patient, but this is part of the fun of it, right? You want to see what happens. What happens if I add this? What happens if I add that? All right. Well, I think that's going to take quite a bit more baking soda. So rather than keep you waiting through that, let me show you what I made this morning. Here is my polymer. About the same measurements. About 1 cup of glue to 1 cup of water, and then I slowly added some more boric acid and also more baking soda. What I recommend is you want to try adding first start adding some of the boric acid or borax, a teaspoon each, but again, to really make it firm, to really make it hold, you want to add more baking soda. So add a tablespoon at first. That's still not quite hard enough. Add another tablespoon. If it's still pretty runny, then you can start adding 2 tablespoons at a time. So let me show you what I got here. Yeah, solid. It's pretty goopy still, but see how much more solid that is. I'm gonna take some out here. There we go. There's a good amount. All right, and again, you can use gloves if you like, especially if you are using borax. I'm going to try and roll this into a ball. It's pretty goopy here. All right, so I kind of got a ball here. Well, let's see if we can make it bounce. A little bit. And then it just goes splat. Now, there are all kinds of different ways you can make this. Of course, you've got lots of different ingredients, so depending on how you do your ingredients, how much you add one thing, how much to another, you can get quite a bit different results. Oh, there we go, got a little good bounce there. All right, So to help you along, kind of help you keep track of what ingredients you're using and to make this a little more scientific, you can make a table like this. So I've got my ingredients here. I've got glue, water, boric acid. In my case, if you use borax, you put borax, and then also baking soda in this column here. So those are my ingredients. And then in this last column, put observation, or you can write description, that's fine. So what you want to do is you want to record how much glue you added. So for example, I used 1 cup of glue. Water, I used 1 cup of water. Boric acid, I started out with 2 teaspoons. And then baking soda, I sort of roughly eyeballed a tablespoon. Of course, if you want to actually use a measuring spoon, you can do that. And so when I did that, it was still pretty runny. Okay, not even as thick as syrup. So in my description here, I would use some kind of term like runny or even watery. And so what happened next? Next, I had 50% glue, 50% water, or 1 cup glue, 1 cup water. And then for boric acid, you can put a plus sign to say that you added, say maybe another teaspoon of boric acid, and a plus, say another tablespoon of baking soda, and write your description there. So the idea is the more you work through this and the more you record it, or the more you record rather, you kind of make yourself a recipe for making whatever kind of polymer you like. Now to make it bouncy, you're going to want it pretty firm. So to give you a hint, I recommend adding quite a bit of baking soda. But still pretty fun regardless of whatever you get. All right, well, hope that was fun, and I will see you next week for another video.